All right, midterms are coming up, and medieval Christianity is a big one, right? If you're trying to piece together all the names, the dates, the different movements, you've come to the right place. So think of this as your personal roadmap, a study guide designed to help you totally ace this exam. We're going to follow the exact timeline from your lectures, so everything should feel familiar, just clearer.
We're going to laser focus on the absolute must-know people and events that literally built Western Christendom from the ground up. Our path is super straightforward. It's chronological. We'll start right after Rome falls and take it all the way to Charlemagne, hitting every major point you're going to need. So let's dive in.
Okay, so here's the game plan, broken down into 5 key parts. First, we'll see what happened when Rome fell apart. Then we'll get into the rise of monasticism, super important. Third, how the church started spreading north. Fourth, the big man himself, Charlemagne. And we'll wrap up with the intellectual boom known as the Carolingian Renaissance. These are the 5 big themes you'll want to have down cold for the test.
So, let's set the scene. Imagine this. The Western Roman Empire, the superpower of the ancient world, is gone. It's just collapsed. What's left is chaos, invasions, and just total instability. There's no central government. And into this huge power vacuum steps a very unlikely player, the church. This is a massive turning point.
Now this slide is really important because it shows a huge fork in the road. The church in the West had a choice. They could have sided with Arian Christianity, which a lot of the invading tribes followed, or they could go their own way. The Latin Church, with the Pope in charge, made a really smart strategic move. Instead of buddying up with the new guys, they allied themselves with the old Roman nobles. And what happened? These powerful aristocrats just became bishops, basically keeping their power by taking over the church. This decision was absolutely crucial for its survival.
And here's the bottom line for this first section. A religion that was once hunted down and persecuted by the Roman Empire had now become the new establishment. Think about that. It was the only organized, unifying force left standing in Western Europe. You gotta remember that shift. It changes everything.
So, while the world outside is basically falling apart, a new movement starts to bubble up from within. It's called monasticism. And this wasn't just about people running away to pray in isolation. No, this was about laying a whole new foundation for civilization. And it all started with one key guy.
This is Benedict of Nursia. You'll probably hear him called the father of Western monasticism. And to really get Benedict, you have to understand the world he was living in. We're talking 480 to 547, right in the middle of all the barbarian invasions and the complete collapse of Roman authority. He saw a world in chaos and decided to build something designed to last.
So how did he do it? With this, his masterpiece, the Rule of St. Benedict. Now, this wasn't just a boring list of don'ts. It was a practical user's manual for how to live a balanced, meaningful life in a community. And it had 2 huge goals. 1, to help the monks find personal holiness, and 2, and this is huge for history, to preserve knowledge. Monasteries basically became the only libraries and schools in a very chaotic world.
The entire philosophy can be boiled down to this one brilliant Latin phrase, ora et labora, pray and work. See, for Benedict, these 2 things weren't separate parts of your day. They were the same thing. Physical labor, whether you were farming or spending hours copying ancient manuscripts, was a form of prayer. And prayer, well, that was the most important work of all.
To live this life, a monk had to take 3 vows. Definitely know these for the test. First, poverty, which was a direct rejection of a greedy world. Second, chastity, a rejection of physical temptation. And third, obedience to the leader of the monastery, which was a rejection of personal pride and ambition. In a world full of violence and chaos, these vows created these little pockets of peace, order, and incredible productivity.
Okay, so the church is getting organized. It's got these incredible powerhouses of learning and stability in the monasteries. So what's the next logical step? Expansion. The popes in Rome start to look beyond the old borders of the empire, to the north.
And the mission to England is the perfect example of this. The year is 597. Pope Gregory the Great, who was a monk himself, sends a priest named Augustine with about 40 other monks to what is now England. And it worked. It was a huge success. They established a church that was incredibly loyal to Rome. And this loyalty was symbolized by the pallium, which is this special garment the Pope would send to the Archbishop of Canterbury. It was a physical sign that his power came straight from the Pope.
But check this out.
It wasn't just a one-way street. While Rome was sending people out, the Celtic monks over in Ireland were coming up with their own innovations. They had this really optimistic view of human nature, and they created a system of private one-on-one confession to a priest. They saw it as a tool for self-improvement, and this Irish practice eventually got so popular, it spread and became a core part of the entire Western Church.
All right, this leads us to our next major player, and he is a giant, Charles the Great, or, as we know him, Charlemagne. With him, that alliance between political power and church power reaches its absolute peak.
Christmas Day, 800. If there's one date you circle from this whole period, this is it. In Rome, Pope Leo III places a crown on Charlemagne's head and names him Holy Roman Emperor. This is insane. For the first time in over 300 years, there's an emperor in the West. But get this. This time, his power comes directly from the Pope. Politics and religion are now officially married.
And look, you don't have to take my word for it. Charlemagne himself spelled out this new deal in a letter to the Pope. He basically says, okay, my job, my task, is to be the muscle, to defend the church with my armies. Your job, Holy Father, your duty, is to be the spiritual support, to pray for our victory. It's a partnership, the sword and the cross. This idea pretty much defines the rest of the Middle Ages.
But here's the thing about Charlemagne. He wasn't just a brilliant general. He knew an empire couldn't survive on muscle alone. It needed a unified culture, it needed smart people to run it. And the peace and stability he created on the battlefield set the stage for an incredible comeback for art and learning.
And what he kicked off is known as the Carolingian Renaissance. For the exam, just think of it as a golden age for knowledge. The production of books and manuscripts just exploded. The best and brightest scholars from all over Europe came to his capital city, Aachen. And maybe the coolest innovation was something called Carolingian minuscule. It's basically the invention of lowercase letters. It made books way easier to read and copy. I mean, think about it. Suddenly, ideas could travel faster and more accurately than ever before.
So who was the mastermind behind this whole revival? It was this guy, an English monk named Alcuin of York. You could say that if Charlemagne was the political engine of the empire, Alcuin was its intellectual architect.
And this right here, this is his masterpiece, his most lasting contribution. He set up a structured curriculum for all the schools in the empire. It was based on the old Roman idea of the 7 liberal arts, broken down into the trivium and the quadrivium. This blueprint didn't just unify Charlemagne's empire, it became the foundation for Western education for like the next 1,000 years. No joke. The modern university starts right here.
And this quote, wow. It's from a letter Alcuin wrote to Charlemagne, and it just perfectly sums up their incredible ambition. They weren't just trying to copy ancient Greece or Rome. They truly believed they could build something even better, a new Athens in their kingdom, an Athens made better because it was built on Christian teachings. It was an incredibly bold vision.
Okay, so as you're studying, let's wrap it all up with this one big question. We've seen how the monks basically put civilization in a lifeboat to save it, and how Charlemagne built this massive Christian empire. But what was the single biggest idea that came out of this whole period? Was it the idea of a holy empire itself, the way they blended faith and learning, or the value of a structured spiritual life? If you can answer that, you've got a fantastic core argument for any essay question they throw at you. All right, good luck.